Hi friends, thanks so much for joining me here today. I'm going to be doing a few pages in my mini album with the Valentine's theme, focusing on the 3 set of exclusive dies that were available in the January Hip Kit Club offerings. I'm using the We Are Memory Keepers disc punch to put my album together. All the pages are 9x4, and I chose that because I have a lot of slimline products that I'll want to insert later. So I've used the Fancy Mix die set to create my cover, and I'm just going to go through the process of how I made the stained glass hearts. So I cut 2 out of white AC cardstock and then cut around one of the die cuts to make a backing so that I could fill it with all the pieces you see in stained glass. And I created all the stained glass pieces by cutting 5 additional hearts out of 5 of the cardstock that were in the kit. And I glued the backing of the heart onto a white piece of paper and then put it back together like a puzzle and fill my white hearts with the colored pieces. And it wasn't easy to do. It's a very time consuming process, but they turned out so pretty. Once you have your colored hearts put back together, then you're on your way. Then it doesn't take long. So I've glued the die cut to the background, and I'm going to, just using a little tiny bit of glue, place the glue inside the die and add a colored piece from my 5 other colored hearts. Does that make sense? I hope so. I think you can tell what's going on by the demo in my video here. I'm not going to do the whole heart. I just want to show you how I go about choosing different colors. I think it'd be cute with pattern paper if the patterns were really small. Or you could just backfill it with one paper, or paper back it, I should say, with one paper. But I wanted to use all the pretty cardstock that was offered in the kit this month, and they're kind of new. We usually get Basil, but you're getting exclusive Hip Kit Club cardstock this month. So the second die, I use spray glue on the back of it, and that makes it easy to pop it up over your heart, and that gives it a lot of dimension. So imagine all your little spots were filled with color, and you can always set that aside and use the colored hearts on another project. So that's how I went about making the stained glass hearts. So I wanted to add some sequins to the cover, and I'm just going to poke some holes with my handy dandy ruler tool and do a quick demo on how I go about chain stitching sequins on a project. So I went in the first hole and wrapped the thread around the back, and then came up again to the front through the second hole. Go under your first stitch, add a sequence to your needle, and go back down through the next hole. So let's do a few in case that sounds confusing. They turn out so pretty. So you go in a hole under your previous stitch, add a sequence to your needle, and then go back down through the hole you came from. So in a hole, under your previous stitch, add a sequence, and go back down the hole you came from. One more. So you go in the hole, under your previous stitch, add a sequence, and go back down through the hole you came from. Easy breezy, right? So I used the Love die in the Fancy Mixed Metal die set to cut out the word love And I cut it out twice on plain white AC cardstock. Then I took some suquang and taped it to some white AC cardstock, and I'm doing this so that when I use my die to cut it out, I'm going to have a sticky word, and then I can use glitter on top. Now, I did have to run it through the Big Shot a number of times. Mine isn't new. Maybe you won't have to do it as often. But I went back and forth probably at least 20 times to get it to cut through all the layers. So the first two plain white cardstock dies, the word love, I glued together. And I'm doing this to create a more dimensional word. Instead of just one layer, it'll actually have 3 layers in the end that are glittered. So you cut out 2, glue them together, clean it up with your pick, and then the one that has suquang, you glue it to your word, and then you peel off the tape, and that'll give you a sticky word, or a word with sticky on it. And then I'm going to cover it in glitter, and you'll see how that turns out in just a moment. So this is a technique I learned from my friend Zoka Marco. She does the most beautiful cards for spellbinders, and she always makes her words layered as well as the embellishments on her cards, and it just makes a big difference. So that's why I'm doing it. Thanks for the lesson on that, Zoka. So I peeled off the tape from the suquang, and now this word is sticky, and I'm just pulling off some cat hair. And here comes the glitter. So I flip it over, knock it in the glitter, and this really fine textured word is now a glitter word with dimension. And before I finish the front cover, I want to glue the backing of it, which is actually the first page of my mini. I want to glue that and the cover together, because it'd be hard to do once you have your hearts on there. And I use the double-sided sticky tape, and I get it at scrapbook.com. I've been calling it suquang because that's kind of the old name, but just any double-sided sticky tape that you usually use. I like to put it very close to the edge so nothing looks like it's peeled up when you're finishing your album. And I like to just pull aside a little tag on the suquang rather than peel it all off. On the side with the disc punches, I did peel them off because they're so small. But what this does is it allows you to kind of position your project without getting it entirely glued down in case you have to do a little adjustment. So sorry this is out of frame. I had to bring it closer to my face. It's hard to do when you're far away from your work. Once you have it where you want it, then you pull on the little tabs and use your bone folder to mush it together, and there you go. The back page is attached to the cover. So I popped up my stained glass hearts with 3D foam, and I placed each on a bit of an angle using the edge of a heart as a guide with the edge of the mini. I just thought that looked more fun than having them straight up and down. Keep in mind that if you want the word love to be straight, factor that in. So I made a little mark for where I wanted to place them once I eyeballed it. Didn't use a ruler or anything. It just gets complicated for me. I usually just eyeball things, and sometimes that gets me in trouble. But in this case, that was a lot faster. So I used the daisy in the same die set. I cut out each color 10 times, and I lightly glued them to my page and sewed with my sewing machine I like that it kind of looks swervy, and you'll see that set of pages in the end of this video. Some photos will come up. So another die set available this month are the nested hexagons, and I used that with the fringed cardstock to make the window panes that you see on this next page. So I cut out a hexagon using one of the dies, then using the same die with the next die smaller, I used them together to cut out a window frame. And once you have the window frame, I trace the inside of it on the background so that I could tell where I needed to tape on my fringe. And again, I'm just using the double-sided tape, but I'm using a very narrow one. And I wanted the bottom of the fringe to be inside the frame. And so you just use your scissors to trim off the edges and make your next layer. I have mine probably a 1/4 inch apart, and that seemed to look all right, especially because the smaller one, you're really only going to use 3 layers, and I used 2 on the bigger one and just leftovers on the smaller one. Some of the pieces close to the edge, or where you see the point there, they might fall off because they're no longer attached to the band at the top. So don't sweep them off your workspace, just use some glue to pop that back in place. And once you put the frame on, you won't see that you've attached them in this way. And I added the frames with some double-sided foam tape, just a very narrow strip. It comes in a package from scrapbook.com, and it was quite perfect for this purpose. So here comes my foam tape, and I just put it all the way around the edge, the back edge of the frame, and then I would pop that on top of my fringed hexagon, or part of my fringed hexagon, and then I attached it to my page, and I've overlapped the small one with my larger one. Keep in mind, I mean, you can make them as big as you want, I guess. My album's only 4 inches wide, and it really helped in this case because you know, you have limited fringes, and I wanted to keep the colors compatible. And so by trimming the hexagon into a smaller half, that allowed my fringe to go farther too. So I thought those turned out really pretty, and with that being my focal point, I really didn't have to add too much. I did use some of the chipboard stickers and also some puffy stickers just to add a few embellishments. So it took me a while to decide where to put everything. That embellishment says, "Keep on dreaming." And I think that's a good message for Valentine's and any time of year, actually. And I'm going to pop that up with foam tape just to add a little more dimension. You can also tip up all the fringes with your fingertips. That adds a lot of nice texture. And on the opposite side, I placed a couple photos of Jim, and you'll see that come up in the end in some close-up videos. So this is the last page that I am sharing in the process video, and this page was made with the nested dies. They're exclusive in this month's offerings at the Hip Kit Club, and I made 3 embellishments using the circles with white AC cardstock, as well as some of the pattern paper from the main kit and a couple of the flowers from the floral embellishments. I cut out the rainbows out of the rainbow paper. They were a cutoff when I made a 9x4 page, and so don't throw those cutoffs away. Some of them can be fussy cut. So my photos are popped up with foam tape in a circle that's punched or die cut from the set. And then I trimmed him off just to have a few items hanging off the edge of the page. I think that looks nicer than if everything's directly on the page. And if I could share 3 tips of what I think make an attractive or successful mini, is to start with a theme. And my theme in this mini was my travels with Jim. Also, it's nice if you could repeat a common item. And in this mini, I chose the color gold. So I have gold sequins, glitter, gold thread, dabs of gold paint, and even a couple of the rings that hold it all together are gold. And my third tip is to limit your colorway. In my mini, I concentrated on using the mauves, yellow, and white with pops of blue and pink as accents on different pages here and there. So those are my 3 tips. I want to thank you so much for being here as I finish off my last page. Just going to review the dies that I used from this month's Hip Kit Club offerings. I used the hexagons to make the fringed page. I used the circles on my final page, and I used the fancy mixed die set. I used several dies there, including love, the heart, the daisy, and actually the word hooray as well. And you'll see that in the photos coming up at the end. Have a great day. If you have any questions, please leave them in comments. Be sure to visit our other Hip Kit Club designers today for more fabulous inspiration. Have a great week.